Why hello there, fellow civil engineers. Radamon here. Thank you for tuning in to Timberborn 1.0. Episode 8. A leaky levee still mostly works. Research is pumping. Build projects are building. Planks are finally rolling off the line again. Everything left in the... Oh, I didn't accommodate the cost of these platforms either. Yeah, that's on me. But we do have the planks rolling off the line now, so it should be okay. And it is time to lower this to 0.95 because our water hole is full. Again, some temporary flooding as a result, but it's no big deal. Now, eventually I'm going to want to design this water hole so that it is self-filling and I don't have to manage it. That's like the ultimate goal, and also have it to have a lot more volume of water and maybe to build multiples of them. But one project at a time. So, I think for right now, getting the gear workshop up and starting to amass the supplies I need for a tap shack and observatory would be really helpful to be able to amass the kind of science we need to tackle the projects that I have in mind. Kind of surprised it keeps randomly flooding. Maybe it'll drop to 0.9. It shouldn't flood at 0.95. There's like 5% overhead, but it just keeps flooding anyway. I'm also gonna build another water wheel here, and then build levees to bottleneck the water so it's a little bit more powerful. Just so that because once the gear workshop gets built, this requires 120 horsepower, not 50 that the lumber mills do. So we're going to need even more power fed to it. So I think that's a good next project. But we almost have the floodgates back here built, which keeps badwater out of the center of the map, which is going to be great. And Trilon, thank you for the resub. The water physics go a little wonky, changing speeds? Yes, I change speeds a lot. It's like a bad habit of mine I can't help but to keep going with. Just is what it is. So the second power wheel is nearly done. The other reason for this levee is I'll be able to start building structures west of the river that are hooked up to the same power network. I wonder what my next event will be. Why are you flooding so much? Whatever. So we are 1 plank, 4 logs away from keeping badwater out of their center. We're now supplying a lot more power to our industry. So they have all the power that they need, which is good. Things are running pretty smooth. We just got to stay on top of it. I think I'm going to try to raise this back up to 0.95. Just keeping it close to maximum at all times seems wise to me. And these are the last 2 logs destined for the floodgate. There we go. And now all of this can be arable. We won't have, as long as I manage the floodgates properly, this ground here won't have to be dead. Wood stuff. Yeah, there it goes. And with the lack of badwater, this soil will be reclaimed. As you can see, it's already receding. It's not to say that I'm going to expand my forestry zone, because I don't think I need that many trees. That's like more trees than necessary, if you ask me. But regardless, it's a nice milestone, I suppose. Now, the other thing I could do is to raise this up to 1. It will reduce the amount of power the river has access to, because the water will split left and south, left and down. But what will happen is this clean water will start to flush the bad water away. And when I build these gates, it will keep this bad water from even flowing back. So I don't need to do this right now. There's not much of a benefit at the moment. But once these 2 floodgates are built, honestly, I don't need 2 floodgates, or 3 floodgates. I just need 2. Let's do the last one in double levees. Once these 2 floodgates and levees are built, you know, I can even do this cheaper. This double platform is instead going to be, let's do it like this. We'll do something like this. That'll work. It's ugly, but it will work. And then it's like less planks required for this. 2 floodgates, levees, and a platform. And we'll have access to the whole build zone that way. Because we're almost there, right? I mean, 1 more plank and we're there. And we're starting to build this stuff. But yeah, you can see that the clean water is flushing the bad water out. But I don't need to do that right now because it's honestly unnecessary. I'd rather have the mechanical power for the wheels down below. Oop. Changing the levels. Yep. So, in terms of priority, I think I'm actually going to put these as high. And this is normal. Because this keeps the bad water out of my home. This just allows me to store more fresh water for irrigation purposes. And I'd rather keep the bad water out of my home as the highest priority. Oh, our first bad tide. Nice. Well, I'm ready for the bad tide. So we do have the gear workshop going now. And the paper mill would be the next thing to add to it, I think. But I'm going to have this be a extremely low priority. And the point here is to prepare for wind power, because water power is not reliable enough often enough for us to worry about. I also am going to temporarily furlough 4 of my researchers, or all my researchers, so they become builders, so that we can bull rush this like backup levee wall, because this I think is really, really important. In fact, the upper tier is the most important. The lower tier is even less important. Once we divert the water down this way, it's not likely to curve all the way back to our main river. But it's very important. And then I'm also taking the opportunity to top up our watering hole. I'm only going to top it up a little bit now, and then I'll top it up a lot more with the bad tide incoming. Oh, can't you not reach or something? Hold on. I think I didn't have roads there, so my builders couldn't access the area. But we're starting to build up the gears needed for the tap shack. So once we have 10 gears, we could hypothetically build the tap shack, and that would allow us to start to get tree resin to make treated planks, or the observatory, which requires tree resin as well. But I don't think I'm going to be building an observatory until we have like wind power. I think relying on the river flow is going to be bad. Now, the other thing I could do is to hook up power wheels and then connect them up to our main line from over here. So during bad tides, we still have power. That would be wise to do long term. Because this only runs when we have clean water, but we're going to have... But this runs during clean and dirty water. So having generating power during clean and dirty water is like smarter long term. And mixing the two is best, I would say. Mix and match the sources of power. So all of these gates should be at 0.95. Preparing for the bad tide. And they are. Good. And the emergency levee wall is should be done in 2 days. We have the wood. We have the beaver power. Does excess power give you any benefits? Only if you have a battery for it to store it in a gravity battery. If you don't, then no. The way gravity batteries work is it's like a crane where you raise the battery up when you have excess power and then you lower it to receive power when you need it. What's funny is, in real life, we don't use those kind of gravity batteries. We actually use pumped water storage. 95% of stored power in the world is pumped water storage, where during excess power, you run a pump to put water on a higher elevation, and then you can let that water out for hydroelectric power when you need the power. That's how 95% of all batteries in the world work. But not in this game. For reasons... Do I have any usable terrain for gravity batteries? Up here, I'd say. This looks like a pretty good vertical drop for a gravity battery. And the farther the vertical drop, the better for the gravity battery. We also have this sheer cliff too. This isn't as good. It's not as high, but it's still pretty good. Even here is like okay-ish. It's not super high, but like with a few levees, I can make it better. And it's pretty close to our power network. So there's a lot of different opportunities to do that. I'm just not pulling the trigger on it just yet. All right. Research. So I think I want to get dirt excavation more than anything else, as odd as that sounds. And the dirt excavator requires treated planks, which means getting the wood workshop next. Wow, speaking is hard. We have a day and a half to finish these levees. So we have 0, 10, 0, 0. I think they can do it. During a drought, pumped water storage might be... Yeah, I agree with you. It's not, like, ideal to do during droughts. Alright, I think the pool's mostly topped up again, so I'm lowering the gates. Uh-oh. No, that will resolve. Alright, 2 more levee walls in 1 day. Yeah, that's no problem. My builders can't do that. I deserve the L. And this will be our first bad tide. So the big thing about the bad tide is when the bad tide comes, I need to raise this triple floodgate up as high as it goes, or at least to 2, to divert the bad tide water left. Else it bad for me. I don't think I'm going to try to max out the water in the river. I think losing 5% so we don't have like temporary flooding is fine. And we need to deliver... Oh, this is the last log. Done. So the super emergency levee wall is built if this indeed overflows. Cool. And this is high enough water level that I don't think I need to top it up again. I can add a little bit more, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. And even this one's getting built. So, the current priority right now is set up wind power. I think I can succinctly say that that's going to be the most important thing to do, which means running a paper mill. And our paper mill is going to require more planks to be built. All right, now that we're at 0.1 days, let's go ahead and raise this triple floodgate all the way up. And we'll see the benefit of the bad tide diverter. And interestingly, actually, this river caught a little bit of like random floodwater. So you can see what will happen eventually where it's like green everywhere. I cannot wait. So here we go. Here's the bad tide. And in bad tides, your water source becomes bad, and then these like bad tide drains become bad, or start flowing, I should say. And functionally speaking, because of the bad tide drains, there is more flowing water during bad tides, which is why I thought that this levee would not hold. But unlike in real life where it would collapse if it fails, here it just overflows a little bit. And I think it's because there's too much water coming through in this bottleneck, and I would need to dynamite this out to accommodate, which is not unreasonable to do in the long run. I still don't mind building this here, but I think this is going to be like super low priority because it's not mission critical for the survival of our colony. But yeah, here we go. We're getting a little bit of overflow, just a tad of overflow, and this is only a 6-day bad tide. It's not a big deal. Now, what I am gonna lack in these 6 days is a reasonable source of mechanical power, but that's exactly why I'm trying to invest in wind. Yep. So here we go. I was exactly right. We needed these extra levees. And I would not have been able to build the entire levee system up one tier. That was way too large of a scope of a project. But to build these little walls to keep this from flowing into our main river, no problem. That was no problem at all. Now that this path is becoming bad-tided, what I think I'll do is actually straight up pause these projects because I don't want my beavers going over there because they'll have to wade through bad tide water, which gives you essentially cancer. And I don't want cancer, so yeah. But yep, the project is doing exactly what it should, and I finished it within 1 day of bad tide water. Okay, so let's talk about paper mill. The paper mill only requires 80 horsepower, makes paper, and then the windmills that I'm going to want are the big ones. The big ones are planks, gears, paper. And I think what I want to do is... Ooh. I guess I'll poll you guys. So here's two thoughts. I could put windmills here. The advantage of this is... Well, I could put... Well, so big picture. I want to incorporate windmills and gravity batteries in my power makeup. And we have to decide, this is the easy place to do gravity batteries. It has a little bit less of a vertical drop, so it's less effective for gravity batteries, but it's close to where our power grid is, which is here. This is better for gravity batteries. It has far more of a vertical drop, but it's way farther from our power grid. So, where to build grav batteries? West, east. I'll keep it very simple. So, there's the pole. And what I'd likely do is put large wind turbines, like, towards where they're going to be. Now, for us to get large wind turbines, which is a 1.4K research, what we're really looking at more than likely is getting the observatory to manage that. So what I really want to do is build observatory and then set up wind power. And the observatory requires the tap shack. So once the actually, I'm going to pause the paper mill for right now and work on the tap shack, because it's going to be really challenging to build up. Like, these research facilities essentially suck. They're not very efficient. And I want to get research fast so I can get big projects, the research for big projects fast. And then maybe during... I'm really surprised my, like, wood is struggle busing. But, maybe during this, this bad tide, we can, try to set up some of the power network for wherever we're building our battery. It looks like east. Looks like you guys want to go for broke. One more minute in the poll. I don't need to make the call right now, but that's what you want. That's what I'll do. I have not been carefully checking if the campfires and rooftop terraces have been hit in quota. I think it's just a lack of free time still. I believe that's the case. Like 16-hour rather than 18-hour maybe might make the difference. I'll try 17. I'll split the difference. 17 hours. Yeah, that water creeping into our main river would have sucked. But it's simply because there's just so much volume being put here, right? Like 500 horsepower. Like that's a lot of water moving through. The cubic feet per second or cubic meters per second would be obscene. All right, east, you win. So, let's talk about that. The best way to run power out there, I'm going to do something like this. It's going to be ugly, but what I was thinking is getting the vertical power shaft and stuffing our power. So, the idea is we put gravity batteries... Whoa, autosave. We put gravity batteries up here. But that means our power shafts need to get up there. Our power shafts can go vertical with the vertical power shaft. So this is going to be a really expensive project where it's going to be something like this, where, because I don't want the power shaft to prevent traffic, I'm going to have to raise it up, which kind of low-key sucks. But that's just the way it is. So we'll have a vertical power shaft here where it goes up a level. And then we run the power shaft above. And then it starts to hike up this mountain to where we are going to set up gravity batteries eventually. The reason I'm planting this now is having a bunch of power shafts around here will allow us to add wind turbines in this area as well. So it will help with that. So now, once built, this monstrosity, once built, this will have power gears. And we can feed it to the crab batteries up there. And it's a lot of planks. It's a lot of planks. What I might want to do in lieu, knowing how many planks it is pivot. Like, make this really low priority for now. So that we can get the tap shack and observatory to take advantage of the wind power. Because one advantage of this giant network is wind requires some space. So having a large gear network means that you can build a lot of wind. So I still want to prioritize the tap shack. This is going to be the highest priority. And then the observatory, which requires the resin, will be next off of that. And maybe I put the observatory here. Yeah, I'll put it there. So this is going to be low. And I'll put power shafts right there. Yeah, I could build, yeah, you're right. I don't have to have it be staired. I could just have it be like one massive vertical shaft. It's probably cheaper if I was to price it all out. Either way, still lowest. No, oop, that's highest. Still lowest. So we have the pine resin, and then for now I'll just put like a maple syrup tank here. I'm not doing anything with the maple syrup, so it's not like a big deal that I'm collecting it yet. And the idea is to get the observatory up to buy the research needed for these things. Because they're not in any way cheap. Can you make a power shaft on a bridge only or above roads? The reason why I'm doing it on bridge is so that I don't, like, block. Because power shafts are not walkable. So if you built, like, a wall of, like, these power shafts, you would block your beavers from walking around. Which is why they're raised. So that it won't be a traffic problem. It dramatically increases the cost, which I warned you about, but you voted for, like, enough of you voted for it anyway. Dramatically increases the cost, but, like, I don't care. It's not something I care about. So the cost be damned. So for this we need, what, one more plank? I'm going to temporarily pause the gear workshop so we can get the last plank that we need for the tap shack. So we can start collecting the resin. Because we really only need then pine resin and gears for the observatory. So there we go. We have a tapper. Sweet. We're doing a pretty good job of, like, clear-cutting all of the trees. My God. Maybe I will, yeah, maybe I will change the forestry to use more of the land. I don't know yet. Where'd all the workers go? I know, obviously, we have one more tapper. But I feel like a lot of my workforce sort of disappeared. Ooh, newest high score. Yep, dropping it to 17 helped. It's given enough time for everyone to get campfire and rooftop terrace. All right, 2.5 days of bad tide. No problem. We have all the pine resin that we need, and I think what I'll do is I'm just going to pause the tap shack until I have the wood treatment set up. I don't need more pine resin. I don't need maple syrup. I'm not using either. Also, I don't need this gatherer flag. I failed to notice this gathering flag got built, and that's where like some of my workforce went. That explains it. I was like, hey, how do I have no builders and haulers all of a sudden? And now I know. So we'll need a whole lot of planks for this thing. So once we hit the gear requirement, I'm going to turn off the gear workshop because the gears turn planks into gears. So as long as you're making gears, your plank workshop just can't keep up with demand, which is exactly what is happening. Now, the other thing that we could do in this setup is to also run like vertical power shafts. Now that we have the vertical shafts, right? We could set up power wheels down here and run the power up to here, which is not extremely expensive. I mean, it's a little pricey. One way to make the project a little cheaper is to run a power shaft in the river where it's not really going to block people. That way, I don't necessarily need to pay for it to be elevated. Is there a statistics info if like one pump is enough? You mean like to check what is needed over time? No, I don't think it doesn't drill down to that level as far as I know. One thing I could do, because I am not using the chestnut and maple really yet, is to, because we're running low on oak, is to allow for most of it to be cut down. And just to keep some of it untouched, if we do want maple syrup or chestnuts. So, big picture here. The reason I'm working towards wind power and dirt excavation. Dirt excavation will allow me to start building in dirt rather than in levees, which allows me to do like way larger scale mega projects. And then also dirt excavation will allow me to like create water holes too, if I want. And then the wind power allows me to like have reliable sources of power even when there's no flowing. So during droughts and the like. So that's big picture. For the dirt excavator, we will need the wood treatment and then the whole scavenger flag metal workshop setup, which I'll do at some point. But for the wind, initially we only need the paper workshop, the gear, and the plank. And all of that is already unlocked. So wind is basically, the barrier to wind right now is to get the gears, or the power shafts, to where I could build the wind turbines anywhere. There's no elevation advantage for wind turbines, so you can put it anywhere. And basically, I'm going to put it where we generate power, because that makes the most sense. But I'll probably be putting up a lot of wind turbines up here, or something. Out of the way, where, because they don't require maintenance, so we don't need to, it doesn't need to be like a convenient area. Putting them out of the way so they can generate power. But the issue, like I said, with the wind turbine, is it really only generates power periodically. So it's not reliable, and when the wind isn't blowing, it will just stop, which is why you really want to pair it with a gravity battery, which is why this whole thing was queued up to be built. Because without wind by itself is just not good enough, in my opinion. All right, last day of bad tide. I could be convinced to push towards explosives over dirt excavator. What next mega tech to unlock? Dirt excavator or explosives? And before I put up the poll, I'll explain what I'd be using them for. So, for explosives, I would clear these trees here to allow fresh water to flow eastward and to build a levee system here to be able to feed our water hole from this waterfall, allowing me to collect water at a much higher elevation, therefore having a lot more water. Now, explosives alone makes that still pretty difficult because in order to fill this pond up with water, I still need retaining walls. Ideally, I'd make the retaining walls out of dirt, but if all my research goes to explosives, I won't have dirt excavation. The other thing I could do with explosives is I could blow up this bottleneck here of dirt. It doesn't require a lot of explosives, but just blowing up like 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles might be enough to prevent the bad tides from overflowing our levees. So that's what I would do in explosives. The other thing I could do in explosives, like I said, is connect these two rivers with like a floodgate just in case, or to do more irrigation, so on and so forth. For dirt excavation, I would start building up giant mounds of soil, which is essentially free. You just excavate the ground for it. And to build like massive step wells to be able to retain an incredible amount of water for both irrigation and drought, for drought resistance. So there's the poll. You can decide what the next megatech is. Obviously, I'm going to do wind turbines first, but then after I get wind turbines, you can decide what I'd like push towards. So the means to get explosives, explosive factory require smelted metal. And the dirt excavator requires treated wood and smelted metal. So I already have the wood workshop. I just haven't built one. But both of them require me to have like the metal industry chain. Okay, we've got a third of the gears and almost half the planks. Slow going, but it will speed up soon because we will have more workers and more power, water wheel power. And all the nasty water goes away. Drinks on you? Alright, cheers. Thank you, Crimson, for the cheer. And we have half the research we need for large wind turbine. And then after that, we're saving it for gravity battery. I'm going to obviously do both. Bad tide ends. Once this flushes a little bit, yeah, there we go. I can then lower this down. Because we wouldn't want bad tide water. There's a little bit of bad tide water in this, but it's diluted enough that it's not going to hurt us. I think. It looks like it's like 1% bad tide water. Something like that. Alright, let's go ahead and pause the power wheels. We don't need those. I might want to start immediately filling up our watering hole and then try to cut it before it floods. Less than 5%, you don't get sick. Yeah, it is something like that. It's slightly permissive, if you will. The other thing is, let's unpause this project because the path is clear now. And dirt excavator has 1, so that's what I'll work towards. Got it. Oh wow, they were really eager to work on this project. Like all the beavers were like, yep, we're going. I really want the observatory up though. You have no idea how much research it churns out so quickly. And yes, this is a lot of like bad tide water. Absolutely. I can actually start flushing it out and cleaning it up. I'll do that. So we'll run clean water through it. And then once this gets built, we can actually purify that whole pool, which would be really handy. Crazy, there's not enough flow to even fill this anymore. But it's fine, as long as the power wheels are still churning. Oh no, it's still being fed. Being drip fed. I think it's fed enough. And I'll top it up before next major crisis. I guess I'm going to prioritize this stuff just as like a fun thing to do, because I would love to have a giant reservoir of clean water. And as you can see, it's getting cleaner and cleaner and cleaner over time. A giant reservoir of clean water sitting up here to be released in for whatever reason, or pumped. It's pretty far from our home tile, so it wouldn't be ideal for pumping, but like I could if I needed to. And we're getting pretty close to that observatory being running. I may want to add another water wheel. Feels a little weird to add a water wheel here, though, knowing that, like, I'm trying to make water wheels obsolete. Actually, that's a bad spot. It would be best if I run with the flow of this river. Bottlenecking the river right around the four wheels. And that only costs mostly just like wood, which is why I'm building it, because we have a lot of wood, we don't have a lot of planks or gears. Thank you for tuning in to Timberborn 1.0, which originally streamed live on Twitch. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhodamont.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you'd like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhodamont.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching. Special thank you to my Twitch subscribers, Patreon patrons, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, my fellow Beavers.